Hi, my name is Emily Griffin. This is my mom. She's an interpreter. She is going to be interpreting everything I say. In ASL, it is like bad etiquette to talk while you're signing. ASL has an inverted word order, and so if you're voicing at the same time as you're signing, it changes the way, or it changes the words you'd use to sign. And so she's an interpret for me, and then so you also get a chance to see what interpreting looks like as well. There's a couple things we're going to talk about with deaf culture. Well, first is just going to be my experience with deafness and ASL and all that. With my mom being an interpreter, I've had a chance to be around a lot of deaf people, and I've been around deaf culture. I never officially taken a sign language class. I just kind of picked it up as I, grew up, things like that. And then also when I got to college, I'm involved in a sign language learning community. It's a residential learning community. So we all live together in the same dorm, and it's comprised of deaf students, and then ASL students or students who have some kind of family connection to ASL, and so we all get a chance to practice together and feed off each other and things like that. So let's see. So we're going to talk about a couple things deaf culture. The first one would be the difference between capital D deaf and lowercase d deaf, as far as when it's written out. And what you might have noticed when you read through my paper, every time I wrote deaf, I wrote it with a capital D instead of lowercase d. Capital D deaf refers to deaf people and deaf culture who are involved. So deaf people who are proud of being deaf and are involved with the culture and community, whereas lowercase d deaf simply refers to the hearing loss. Capital D deaf people don't see deafness as a disability. They see it just as that's how they are. The difference of being a man or a woman, deaf or hearing. There's the difference between the capital D and lowercase d. Let's see, other deaf culture things. One would be name signs. Most deaf people and then hearing people connected with the community have what's called a name sign. So instead of finger spelling your name out every time, you have a name sign. For example, mine would be this. And so basically the name sign has your initial and then something to do with yourself. So mine is with an E for Emily. And then I used to have really long hair. So it was a physical trait about myself that stood out. We had a friend whose name starts with a J. She was really long eyelashes, so hers is that. So it refers to that. My mom's, this is a sign for Christian. And so then her name sign is that with an A. It's like that. There are other people who have, we had a friend whose initials were MC, and so he was really tender-hearted, so his initials were right there. And so as with the culture or whatever, if you don't create your own name sign, or somebody just doesn't randomly create it for you, it's created or given to you by a deaf person, and it can be a physical characteristic or personality characteristic that stands out about you. A couple other things. A lot of hearing people believe that deaf people shouldn't use sign language; they should just be made to read lips or voice or whatever. But when reading lips is really hard, only about 30% of the English language is on the lips. For example, the B and the P, look exactly the same. And so reading lips is not a very exact science. And so most deaf people don't read lips, and it's kind of awkward and hard to do. So basically, sign language is a complete language by itself. And there's a culture and everything there for it, so deaf people don't need to be made to, sign or anything, or to voice or anything like hearing people do. Sign language is its full, complete language in and of itself. We also want to talk about cochlear implants, which are, the devices are planted in your head, and they're supposed to make deaf people hear. But they don't really work quite that well. And there's all kinds of risks that are associated with them as far as like medical and health risks. But also, if you get a cochlear implant, that destroys any residual hearing you have left. Because a lot of deaf people aren't like completely deaf; they have somewhat hearing. So things are really, 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 really loud, then they can hear it. But if you get a cochlear implant, like all of that is gone. So it doesn't matter if you have a hearing aid; nothing would help you. And it's not a natural sound; it's a very mechanical sounding, like everything is. And so it's not, you don't just make the deaf person hearing. And there's also, there's a very distinct deaf culture and a very distinct hearing culture. And when you take somebody and give them a cochlear implant, that kind of makes them where they don't fit in either culture. And the cochlear implant's not bad. And I personally believe if a person grows up and they want to get a cochlear implant, that's totally fine. However, I don't think you should implant children because they don't have the choice to decide for themselves if they want that or not. So that should be left up to them. And there's nothing wrong with being deaf. People live their lives deaf and love it. And there's a culture and everything there for them, so we don't need to try to fix them or anything like that. Being deaf is just fine. So there you go. That's what we talked about deaf culture. And then I guess the next video we're going to talk about basic signs, and so we're going to teach you some of those.